How can we teach our children to share things? What can we do as parents when they fight over not wanting to share things? And the age group predominantly young children. What can we do as parents, right? So let's divide this into broadly three parts. What can we do before this fight begins, and what do we teach them about sharing before there is a confusion regarding sharing? That's one part. That's before the fight. Then what can we do during the fight when this whole argument or whatever the fight is going on? That's the second part. And the third part is what can we do after the fight is over and everything is settled down and they have reached some kind of a solution or whatever, they have moved on, then what can we do? So if you look at it in three parts, firstly, we need to have a clear understanding of, again, context matters, but broadly about fights between children. Fights can be physical, it can be verbal, it can be it can cross boundaries. So the main concept here is boundaries, even with sharing. It's wonderful to share, but sometimes if you don't, you other people can not share also. So if somebody is telling no, how do I respect the no? So not everything you ask for will be given to you. Sometimes the other person does not want to share, or sometimes you don't want to share, and you need to be aware. But there can be other consequences if you don't share. And so, how do we have conversations around how to say a no, how to accept a no, uh, how to resolve a conflict, how to solve a problem, how to negotiate? All these skills our children are learning, especially when they're having an argument. So, as parents, when we see our children fight and have conflicts or arguments, we cannot avoid it, and our job is not to avoid this fight and make sure that our children are always happy and never fighting, always sharing and wonderful. That's not what we are expecting them to do. Conflicts are not bad, conflicts are necessary, conflicts are good, which means both your children are having some kind of an authentic self, that they are really able to voice what they truly want, and which is good. That's the first step of emotional intelligence. If we want to raise emotionally resilient children, they should be clear about what is it that I want and what is it that I do not want. Being clear about what am I thinking, what am I feeling in this context. That's the start, isn't it? So it's good when you see two children are arguing and trying to negotiate. So when it is still at a verbal level and it is not crossing boundaries in a manner where we are not using words, name calling and becoming abusive, then yes, that is when you need to intervene. Or if it is crossing a safety threat where they're really hitting each other and you know that it is going to cause a safety issue there, yes, you must intervene. If it is hurting property and environment, yes. Or if there is some kind of a psychological abuse or a little bit of bullying, especially if one child is older than the other, and they are like, manipulation and lots of that is happening, and you see that the one is very clearly powerless, especially if the age gap is pretty much high. What is happening over there? If you can observe that and you see any of these strong boundary violations, which is physical boundary violations to an extent of safety issues, verbal boundary violations, name calling, and really use of abusive words and putting the other person down, psychological, which means trying to bring out old things and really, really be harsh on the other one, especially when there is an age difference. And yeah, so all of these boundary violations, check what is happening and check if there is a huge power struggle. If you're noticing this, then you intervene. But if none of this is happening and they are just sitting and arguing and they're going on and on, but there is no broad safety threats you're noticing over there, harm to oneself, others, property, or environment, ideally let them negotiate, let them try to solve it on their own, and do not jump in as a referee, and do not trying to take sides and say do that, do this, why don't you share, and trying to teach sharing at the wrong moment, not necessary. Now, ideally this conversation needs to happen with the children before they are going to play, saying that you can come to mama for help. Otherwise, mama is not going to interfere in this if this argument is happening. But mama will interfere if I notice all this. There is absolutely no problem fighting and arguing with each other, but these are the things which are an absolute no in this home, which is verbal abuses, emotional abuses, psychological abuses, physical abuses is not done, So these are all not okay, not acceptable, but otherwise you're arguing, mama is not going to intervene. If you need mama's help, you will need to come and ask mama's help, and of course, I can listen to both sides. So, these are the things which you have probably already discussed with the children when you are sending them to play together, or you know that both of them are going to be left unsupervised and you're going to be doing some work. So, that's uh, agreements or before these things are happening. And also, now what you tell about your understanding about sharing is, it is great to share, and if you do not want to share something, explain to the other person why you do not want to share, and explain when it is okay to share. That is up to you. They can decide that. And if there is again a confusion, somebody disagrees and they can't solve the disagreement, sure, mama is here. You can always come to help. So it's not like it's not a blanket, no, I will not interfere and deal with it. And it's also not like always come to mama and I will only be the judge. I know the right thing to do. Not necessary. Keep it flexible. Okay, so presuming that this conversation has already happened prior, nevertheless, of course, conflicts can happen, fights are happening. Two ways: either one of them is coming to you for help, or you are having to intervene because there is some boundary violation that has happened. If they are coming to you for help, first check, of course, just like how we mentioned in the previous video, check if they are regulated. Are they screaming, howling, shouting? One of them is really, really upset, completely emotional. Then at that time, your focus is not to get into reasoning, not to be the referee, not to take sides, nothing. Make sure they are safe and one is not hurt. If they are genuinely hurt, attend to that first. But if they are hurt emotionally, that is also important. Say that, yes, I can see that you both are really upset, or one person is really upset. Come, and without before talking, it's like, would you like me to hug you, or come, you want to sit here? So if they are going on and on and on, just be quiet till they are venting it out. Make sure that they are separated. If there is a physical fight happening and they are trying to really hit each other, then you will have to remove the one who is going and hitting, or remove the one who is likely to get hurt. Remove the other person. Pick any one. Don't try to manage both. Take one and move to another space and say, wait, come here, we will sit here and I will come to you now. And also remove the item for which, if it was something that they were fighting for, that will come into your hand. It could be anything. It could be the television remote, it could be a toy, whatever it might be. Remove that item, keep it separate. If you see it is really, really a lot, make sure you ask for help if there is somebody to help. Next thing is, what if there are too many people to help and too many people are giving instructions? That we have discussed, very, very bad idea. One person intervene with one person. So you're removing the child away. And first is regulation. Are they really calm? Sit it down and then you start listening to the story. Let them narrate the full story. So what happened? And while they are narrating the story, what you are watching for is, do they know what am I thinking and what am I feeling? So for example, if the person who did not want to share saying, no, I did not want to share this toy because I want to play with it, or there must be a reason. So try to get to that after they are regulated. Help the children come up with their own reasons. Listen to them why they did not want to share before getting into a blanket no of, no, sharing is good, so you must share. This is your brother and you are brothers and you should always love each other, and come on, be a good boy. No, it's not about being good or bad. Sharing is not like good and bad. There are times just that we need to be aware of why we don't want to share, why we are okay with sharing. We need to talk about it. That is it. So let's not get into a moral stand about goodness things, because empathy does not mean that we always keep giving. Empathy is also about being empathetic to our own self, of what is happening to us. Otherwise, when they are not at home in any other situation. For example, they are having food and somebody is saying, hey, will you share? And if you are still hungry, and you can still say no because you want to eat the food. So this is very, very contextual. So it is important to teach children that sharing is good, is not a blanket statement. So it is important that we listen to them, the child who did not want to share. And now I need to bring a context here because this will be very, very contextual. For example, hypothetical, I'm going to say that it's about the TV remote. One person is watching some program and the other child comes and says, I don't want to watch this, give me the remote. One says, no, I will not give the remote. And they started off with the verbal argument, gently started pulling the remote each other and screaming, hitting. It just escalated. Now suppose that is the situation. First the remote comes into your hand, the TV goes off, both of them regulate it, sit down and start with who wants to start first. And you can also decide who had the remote first, they can start it. And you can help them either decide who wants to speak first, but if they are not able to decide, start with the one who's more regulated, one will get to speak first, and lay the rules that after they finish speaking, you will get a turn to speak. So you will need to wait until they finish speaking. It's okay for you to disagree, but wait. Let the first child say, for example, maybe the child says, no, mama, I was watching this TV, then now he just came and he just snatched the remote, didn't ask me, so why should I was watching the program, so you asked, so did you tell him? Yes, I told him, but he just snatched the remote. Is there anything else you want to say? So no, I would have. So do you mean to say that you would have given the remote after the program? When does the program get? So basically have that conversation, finish your complete understanding, and then go to the person that, okay, did he say no, and did he tell you that he will give it to you after you watch the program? So then this child might say, no, 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 he didn't tell me, he told me get lost, and or he called me monkey, something else will come out of it. So then maybe it was not as much what triggered the other child was not as much the remote, but maybe this child said no, and in addition to that used some name calling word over there. So unless we listen truly to both sides, we wouldn't know where the switch happened and where the boundaries were violated. Like I said, the initial boundaries, was it physical? He pushed me, that's why I pushed him. He pushed me first. So who is starting that violation of pushing and pulling? And then actually the point wouldn't even be the actual item. But for this, we need to have the time first, we need to have the patience. Now all this explanation is when we have the time and patience. And the only, of course, parenting is all about having the patience and the time. So which is why get into these listenings only when you have the time yourself. Now suppose you didn't have the time to listen to both sides and then see, haha, do you think this was okay? So again, instead of saying a blanket no of oops, that don't you think we at first agreed that we will not be hitting or pushing, that was our agreement, it is, and then what happened? So we are not asking the child who pushed saying, why did you push, didn't I tell you it is not? We don't have to bring in our emotion into the equation, then we escalate it. So we are just asking, hey, we agreed about this first, but this is what you did, what happened? So we are only asking questions with curiosity, and we are not going into the equation between the two children as a referee or as a judge. We are not here trying to judge. We are going there curious, saying, aha, this happened. Oh, so you hit him. So what happened? How come you forgot the agreement? What happened? So when we are curious, the child can say, yes, Amma, I pushed because he pulled the remote. So we will know more details. You'll say, okay, that's why you pushed. Okay, so then go back to this person. How come, we forgot that we should ask and not pull. No, he wouldn't have given it, otherwise I would have known. Okay, so we get the exact order of events, we will figure it out, so both the children feel heard, and we'll say that, okay, next time, so what can we do differently? Go through the order. So next time you go ask him, but doesn't mean that he can say no. And when you say no, please say that I will finish watching this episode and I'll give it to you, and then that should be okay. So is that okay? Is that okay? Now I'm not saying that it should go this smoothly all the time. It need not, because both of them might not know how to take turns while speaking. Both of them might come in and say, no, he is lying, I did not hit. All this can happen in between. But the point is that, do we have the time, energy, and patience to teach our children the skills of negotiation, conflict management, problem solving? Because if we do not know it ourselves, how are we managing conflict with our partners? What have the children seen? How their parents argue with each other, or when there is a conflict between the parents, what have they seen? Have they also seen screaming, shouting, howling? Then very likely that they're going to do the same thing. Have they seen name calling and huge throw of words, or they have not seen conversations, or they have not seen patching up? Then they also will not learn how to do that. So the point is that it's not a sure shot blanket way of this is how we handle conflicts, but it's very, very flexible, it depending on the context. But the overall is, one, we need to get both the children regulated. If there are boundary violations, talk about that. We are not trying to teach be good children and share, is not the objective of how we teach sharing. So there are times when people can say no to sharing. So suppose we had two chocolates and I gave both, and the one comes and says, oh, can I have one more bite of that? And the other can always say no. So we don't have to push this child and say, no, 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 why don't you give a little bite? Isn't this child younger? Aren't you the older boy? No, the older boy has the right to say no. So, and then the younger one should be okay with it. So we will figure out how maybe one child needs to know how to accept a no for an answer sometimes, and sometimes it's okay to share. And again, let the children make those choices. So if this child is saying, I will not give the remote, then the other can decide that, okay, so then when you ask, I will also not give the remote. Sure, fair enough. That could be okay. We don't need to get into that, no, you will have to always share. So there are no blanket uh, sharing is always necessary kind of blanket statements. It will be very, very contextual. Go through, listen to the conversations, check what was, where all the agreements were violated, which all boundaries got thing. And then when somebody has hit or said something, instead of saying, why did you do that, say sorry, say sorry. Now be very careful before hurrying your children to say sorry to each other. Sorry, feeling sorry, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. And if the child is truly not feeling sorry and you're forcing the child to say sorry, we are disconnecting it. It's again not it's more of a control mechanism, because the child is not feeling sorry. Of course, out of fear of you getting angry, the child might say sorry, but that's not how you teach somebody to really feel sorry. Sorry feeling has to come. So you can just say what happened. That is it. So it is about what happened. So let the child think for themselves, saying that, yeah, I actually forgot and I broke the agreement. Ah, okay. And you think that was okay. You feel a little bad, so get to that gently. And this will take time. And this is the only way we can teach them. And it is true that none of us have probably been parented this way, but we are now having to do all that with our children. So, which is why it can get very, very difficult for us parents, because we are like, nobody did all this. We were probably given one tight whack and said, give the toy, and that's it. So then we might be feeling that, oh, we are just spoiling the children. No, we are just teaching our children what are healthy boundaries, how to say a no, how to accept a no. All these are skills that they will learn in adult life, which they will primarily learn at home while they fight with each other. So conflicts are not bad. So I hope that answers the question. And